Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to OnFirst 2013 League of Legends tournament on Chaos TV with €5,000 on the line. These teams have everything to play for. I am Pulse, Alice Impulsible, and I am joined by Metas at Metas TV with Test Your Limit and Kalu OP. Unfortunately, we're in Champion Select, Picks and Bans, but they've already done it once. We had to go back in because our producer wasn't on the tournament client yet. So we're probably going to be going off very shortly because we'll be jumping to a break. Or do we want to carry on running?
Hey Paul, say viewers. I'm not too sure, but Ruben, would you mind muting your mic? Because I can hear random noises. It's quite strange. But yeah, regardless, we are into the picks and bans here. As you can see, very early start for both of us, Paul. So I've not actually slept yet. So this should be quite interesting. I know that you're currently on a caffeine high. So you're going to have all the energy in this cast.
Absolutely. When I had to wake up early, I always have a double shot espresso. Espresso. I don't know why I say espresso. I guess it's like an express espresso. But either way, 15 seconds until we actually don't get onto delay, because there is no delay on tournament clients. So I guess we'll just keep on going. But yeah, looking at the team compositions, look fairly standard. We haven't really looked through the band. We should probably do that before we disappear. Zyra, Shen, Caitlyn, Zed, Ari, and Jarvan. Caitlyn may be a more unconventional ban, but she's definitely one of the best AD carries, and there's no real reason not to ban her out. So yeah, anything there that really comes to mind, Metas?
Not particularly, and as you asked that question, it goes into game. It's so strange for us, you know. Yeah. Normally we do cast on the live client there, so normally at this point we have the 3-minute delay and then we'll cut to commercial break. But it's really nice, Paul, that we can actually jump into the spectatorial spots and just go right in together. We don't have to be watching the stream 5-10 seconds behind. So we are jumping into the game here on the loading screen. And I don't know if you've got this issue as well, Pulse, but I seem to have half screen. I think I'm going to have to expand.
I think it might change when we're in-game. It might be just because of the way the overlays work, potentially in LCS, and they've just done it as a natural setting, which would be pretty cool in itself. We had those overlays on our end. But, either way, taking a look at some of these champions. Aatrox in the jungle. Okay, so this is something we've been seeing a lot more. Kind of runs off the principle that you can tower dive whenever you want, because you're Aatrox and you have the Bloodwell passive. And yeah, I will need to expand my screen. But yeah, Aatrox is a very interesting jungler. I believe we saw OMG run it against the Koreans, and they tower dove at like level 2, and then they killed them, and it was like, what? How does this even happen? It's kind of the same principle as Zac, in that he has his Cell Division passive, but with Aatrox, it completely mitigates the turret aggro.
Yeah, very true, and it is a character that we are seeing a lot more, as you say, especially from players like Cyanide from Fnatic. He really loves using the Aatrox in jungle, and as you say, they can place hyper aggressive, jumping on those towers early on. Speaking of early on here, Pulse, looks as though you've got the majority of the players on the battlefield congregating around this bottom river area. That being said, though, actually the blue team of Test Your Limit are just kind of flirting with the idea of going into the opposition red. Lots of wards being placed down, no early aggression onto each other. However, here come red team into blue's jungle.
Yeah, I'm looking at both of these team compositions, and they're both actually very aggressive. Like, Renekton will look to basically kill his lane opponent. Ashe and Sona is a more aggressive lane than what you're usually used to in an Ashe lane, as you like to farm, but Sona allows you to be aggressive with that 600 range from Ashe, and then the volley as well. Outputs a crazy amount of burst damage, at least in the first couple of levels. We do look at Test Your Limits, moving around the red buff area. If they get if they catch wind of them, they might get this engagement. I'm looking at Fizz right now. If he goes too far south, he could be right in the deep end. And we will have Aatrox checking the bush. It's in fact going to be Nami. The huge burst comes out. Kalu goes huge, picks up the first blood. Moving on to Aatrox, flash over the wall. Ward comes over as well for the vision. And first blood picked up by Kalu OP.
Yeah, Kalu's Lee Sin going to be taking that one down. Definitely going to give him the early advantage in the jungle here. And also going to be stealing out that red buff. And there is nothing that Galatas can do about that. So it's not just a case of that first blood coming in here, Pulse, but also the case that now Aatrox is so far behind in terms of jungle presence. Already a level behind Lee Sin. And it's going to add even further and further away, because it's going to be a good 10-15 seconds before he even gets to his blue buff.
Yeah, there's a couple things Lee Sin can do right now. He can look for the level 2 gank because he's got the red buff. He can go to his own blue, he can go to his own red because he'll know that Aatrox will probably try to counter jungle him. But because he's gotten the first kill, he'll have another couple seconds to kind of reevaluate what he wants to do. He's going to go onto the blue buff and be smiting that one down. And that's basically perfect for Lee Sin. He wants to be aggressive, he wants to get those early kills and shut down his enemy jungler to get those early ganks off. So right now, Aatrox is going to have to do something really quite huge to really catch up in this game. In fact, Lee Sin's going to be recalling, so he's leaving his red buff open.
He is, but with that first blood and also the Doran's blade, actually I was expecting maybe to see a Hunter's machete coming in, or maybe even going the same route as a Shook, for example, and rushing those boots of mobility, but a second Doran's blade picked up here for Lee Sin, so that's going to be lots of damage coming down. And certainly a lot of threat on the map. Will be able to also pick up his red. So, as you were saying before, Pulse, completely correctly, already Aatrox is falling behind at an alarmingly quick rate. Very little that he can do right now.
Yeah, picking up 2 Doran's Blades as the jungler is essentially saying, I want to snowball and I want to win early game with the rest of my team. Having Renekton top, Orianna gives some good mid lane, or mid-game scaling, I guess, good mid lane as well. And the bot lane also saves them for the late game, and pretty good in the early game as well. So Lee Sin has really nice gank lanes to go for. Aatrox moving into the mid lane, Darkfly comes out. You can see putting down the hurt on to Ryu. Now Kalu comes out, he lands the Q, he picks up the kill, Tempest coming in, walks on out of there, Aatrox does not even have the damage, and Lee Sin 2-0.
And that's one of the perks and one of the benefits of picking up a double Doran's blade, is you are going to do a lot of damage when the Resonating Strike and Sonic Wave connect onto the likes of a Fizz. Level 3 had already burnt the Flash as well, in fact not the Flash, sorry, the Ignite previously in that exchange, so was fairly vulnerable and weak. Galatas, this is going to give him a bit of respite though, Pulse, even though yes, obviously Fizz dying is a bad thing, he's going to be able to soak up this XP in mid lane and start to bridge some of the gap that he was facing off against with this Lee Sin, getting the first blood and the red steel. However, while he does this, he's going very aggressive onto Inksy, who's trying his best to get away. Blade of Torment's come out. Here comes the flash as well from Fizz, and they will pull back their first kill of the game.
Yeah, Lee Sin picks up one of the jungle camps, but that's no real compensation for losing a mid laner. It will allow him to sit in mid and soak up some XP or some gold if he wants to, but also reveals his position on the map. Bot lane is kind of off the cards for him at the moment because they're being so pushed up. Actually, take a look at their bot lane. 32 farm to 22 on Corki. That's something you don't really expect. A Corki lane is way more dominant than an Ashe lane, and to be that far on, behind on the farm, yes, he has a wave coming in right now, but still, Ashe is ahead, and that's pretty scary without any jungler intervention.
True, I think one of the reasons why they are slightly ahead is because of, again, that first blood. Both Ashe and Sona picked up an assist from that, but also the fact that you are playing against the Sona as well. It's constant sustain and constant harassment for Corki, who typically doesn't do very well. Corki's very good at brief kind of skirmishes and brief engages for 2 or 3 second bursts. Anything longer than that, and Ashe is going to start to come out on top. So definitely one to watch out for, and all those brief kind of explosions that Mastermind's Corki's going to do here, it's going to be fairly mitigated from the aria of Perseverance coming out from Shim Sona. So again, Corki is very strong right now, Pulse, as you say. This lane matchup, though, doesn't work too well in Corki's favour.
Yeah, that's true. Lee Sin actually finds himself Aatrox in the jungle, puts on a little bit of damage and just moves on out of there. On the mid lane, Inksy kind of kites around that Fierce. Playful Trickster comes out, doesn't quite connect the Sonic Wave. Now moving in with Command Attack, and Galatas also there as well, but right now, Lee Sin has had a huge impact on the early game, but Aatrox has done a very good job catching up. I'm going to have to query the fact he's gone for the double Doran's Blade, though. It's a very snowbally build when you're not doing that well.
Yeah, that is a bit of a head scratcher. So trying to just match up with Lee Sin, but Lee Sin's just so far ahead. Zac is flashing up at the top. Is going to be just fine there with the Cell Division still very much available. Also, another thing to mention at bot lane, one of the reasons why I am keeping an eye mid actually in the meanwhile, but one of the reasons why Corki has seen a resurgence in AD carry plays because of the changes to both Phage and Triforce. So again, Mastermind is going to be fairly, I wouldn't say weak, but he's not going to be crushing faces until he goes back and picks up that early Phage. Once he comes back with the Phage though, Pulse, there is going to be quite a big spike in damage from this bot lane coming out from Test Your Limits.
Yeah, he can really start to shine, at least in the sort of later or latter parts of the laning phase towards the mid game, and that's what we're looking for right now from Masterminds. He wants to at least make some sort of impact when we get to that stage, because if they let it go on for too long, then they'll have to contend with an Ashe late game, in the mid lane. Once again, Fizz just putting down some damage onto Orianna. This is kind of what you expect. I wouldn't say Fizz is a counter to Orianna, but it's very difficult for Orianna to play around it. She can put the ball on herself, use distance, but Fizz's all-in potential is a lot higher. Lee Sin still looking for those ganks, but good warding coverage from Fizz is kind of all he needs. Right now, Aatrox has hit that level 6 region, Lee Sin only level 5, so you can see how much he's been looking for these ganks, and yes, he's gotten those 2 kills down, but given some respite at least for Galatas to catch up. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Inxi drops low, Ignite ticks down, doesn't quite follow and go all in. And in the top lane, Lee Sin forced back off once again.
Yeah, it's a bit of a testament there to Galatas' his ability to bounce back after that early deficit that he was facing. But as you say, Lee Sin's been very active, are looking for the blue buff currently, and being honest to them, however, there is a ward down here from Lee Sin, so he could be trying to make some big plays coming around the corner right now. Here comes a Dark Flight from Lee Sin, they're going to be jumping on top of him. He's going to be ward jumping away, however, and he did get that blue buff steal, so nice play coming in from Kalu.
Yeah, one of the nastiest things to really be playing against Lee Sin. In fact, the top lane, Galatas looks for a gank onto Zeka. Let's Bounce comes in, Dominus as well. He might pick up the kill before that happens, though. Cell Division is still up. Backs on off to the turret, double flash comes out, and the Safeguard comes in, dropped in Cell Division, and the passive in form of Bloodwell from Galatas. They look for the kill, knocks him back, Dragon's Rage, and now Blazer Torn picks up the kill. Double kill comes in for Kalu, bringing himself to 4-0.
And also at bot lane there, Sena and also Shim managed to pick themselves up a kill onto Spider Pit's Nami. So global dominance coming out from KOP right there. Kalu OP, so really nice play from them. Still early days though, Paulson. The composition coming in here from Test Your Limits, if it goes towards that mid to late stages, I feel they're going to escalate very well. Fizz is one of those characters, he's down but never out. If he just gets a couple kills in his back pocket, gets the likes of a Lich Bane and is on his hourglass, he then becomes terrifying again. So the early signs aren't looking good from Test Your Limits. However, what I would say is they have a very strong team composition going forward.
Yeah, Kalu OP's composition is very generalist in the sense that it doesn't look for a specific type of composition. It kind of does everything, but doesn't necessarily do everything really well. Like it's got decent AoE, you've got potentially a ball carry in the form of Lee Sin or Renekton, and it's got pretty good teamfight potential, but at the same time it has pretty decent picking potential. And at the same time it has good early game in Renekton and potentially the bot lane, and then in the mid lane it's kind of okay, and then the late game it's pretty okay as well. So it's very interesting in the sense that if you do get ahead, there's a lot of room to maneuver and outplay your opponent, where I feel that Test Your Limits have put not everything in, one basket, but they really need to start getting kills to kind of make their composition work.
Oh, for sure, definitely. And it's a case as well that they're definitely hoping on a lot of these kind of irritating champions bouncing back up. Cell Division and Bloodwell from Aatrox and Zac respectively is going to be a nightmare in those 5 versus 5 fights when they're both up and available. Suddenly it's effectively like a 7 versus 5 situation you find yourself in, with 2 players just bouncing back up again. Because who's realistically going to focus down the Cell Division in the middle of a 5 versus 5 fight? It's going to spell doom for your team. Regardless though, Kalu is playing very much a roaming Lee Sin right now, clearing out the ward on Drake and not starting it off. So had a lot of action, lots of furious, frenzyful action, but seems like it has just kind of gone back to that farming frenzy. That being said though, Paul's looking like Lee Sin's going to try and make some moves here in mid, jumping around with the ward jump here, and I have to just fired out the Q. Doesn't quite manage to land on Rio, but he's going to be jumping back in right now with the cripple and the Tempest as well. That will be a pickup kill for Inxi. Here comes the Ash Arrow, just whiffing right through, not landing on anybody. And now Kalu is chasing Hot Pursuit on Galatas. Galatas does have the Bloodwell on cooldown right now, so his passive would not have came back out, but he's too tanky to take down.
Yeah, I feel one of the biggest problems with Test Your Limits composition is that they're too dependent on doing well early game when they're against a team who is actually very good in the first couple levels and going for those small skirmish fights. Because if you look at their team, they have very little damage unless they do well. Corki, good in the early mid game. Then you have Fizz, and then you essentially have 2 tanks and Nami. And it will require Aatrox to go for a more damage build, but again, that requires him to do well, because if you're in the jungle, then you have to be getting those kills, you have to be farming incredibly well to make it work. But that's not actually working out for them right now. In the mid lane, Galatasaray finds himself caught. It's okay to be slightly ahead of Lee Sin, but he's not far enough in front of Lee Sin to make that comp work.
What I would say, however, from the perspective of Test Your Limit is that, you know, Lee Sin is a character we spoke a few times before, Pulse. He will end up falling off eventually. Is going to have to probably transition into tank, and then it's more of a utility champion. You want to get behind the likes of Corki and Dragon's Rage them back into your team, so those insect kind of plays. Corki's very difficult to lock down because of Valkyrie. He is a slippy champion, especially when you pit them alongside characters like Nami. Nami's Tidal Wave and the Aqua Prism is definitely just going to save his life time and time again if they're on point. Spider Pit's been caught a couple times at bot lane, so not too sure if that will continue to be the case, but regardless, they do have the champions here, Pulse, to bounce back. There is no doubting that at all. But as you say, if they're going to start to get that train on track, it's going to have to be right here, right now. If they stay at this kind of level of play for the next 5-10 minutes, they're effectively going to fall further and further behind.
I think their biggest recourse right now is the fact they haven't lost any turrets, and yes, they've lost a dragon, but what they do have is very good disengage, and as you said, they're very mobile. Essentially, all of them has a gap closer, and they also have Tidal Wave, they also have Let's Bounce, and also Blades of Torment, very good counter-initiate abilities. So if they do survive until the laning phase, and I say that and the top tower's already gone down, but they can just counter-initiate until they want to fight. The only thing, though, is their anti-siege is fairly weak. Apart from like Blades of Torment and Phosphorus Bomb, and then maybe Missile Barrage, it's not that great. And the sieging from Kalu is a lot better. In the mid lane, we have the gank coming out. Shockwave comes down, huge damage onto Fizz. He backs up, follows up with Resonating Strike. Galata's under the tower, they're still looking to do damage. Tower Shot comes in, now into Bloodwell. Command Attack comes out, looking for the Dissonance. Flash coming in from Aatrox as well, gets him out. But that's a 1-for-0 trade. Dissonance, gotta be very careful, but he should be good to go.
And a beautiful command protect, saving the life of Lee Sin. Second tower goes down in amongst all the action from Sena on Ashe. So 2 towers to 0. And as we were saying before, they need to start getting that train on the tracks, and it's been the complete opposite since I was last speaking. They've now fallen 6,000 gold behind, soon to be 7,000 gold. There we go, as the mid tower has also fallen. That's a lot of gold in quick succession coming out here from KOP, so when they recall, they're going to have a fair chunk of change. Ashe is going back with 1.3k. That should be enough to finish off the Infinity Edge. And that's going to be a scary prospect here, Balls. 15 minutes into the game, Ashe on Infinity Edge. Ouch.
Yeah, they're starting to snowball to places where I'm not even sure that Test Your Limits can catch up. Because if they do fall behind, then they can counter this shit all they want. But in the top lane, Fizz looking for that gank. Dominus has been popped. Actually whiffs, he jumps to the minion. The slingshot comes down, locks him up, and he actually turns this one around. He's got the health. Dominus is so strong. Looks for the counter initiate with Stretching Strike. Asho comes across. Will it connect? Doesn't it actually go straight through all of them, weaves in between, but Zekra is still going strong, 1 versus 3. Kalu arrives into the scene, lands the Sonic Wave, but doesn't choose the Lee Syndrome. Meanwhile, Ink's coming in from the top side, lands another, and looks for the insect, knocks him back. Zekra gets in there, doesn't land, in fact, Rooster's Predator comes down, picks up the kill. Now Salna comes into the top lane, Salna, not sure if that's an L or an I, but the mechanics from Kalu OP is so good right now.
That's exactly what I was talking about, that Lee Sin is going to be a very strong utility as well if you've got the moves, if you've got the mechanics to pull it off, and Kalug's showing us that he certainly does. This could be an inhib tower falling at about 16.5 minutes, which is absolutely crazy and terrifying. Elastic Slingshot from Nasomaniac here, just delaying the inevitable. Here comes the command Shockwave in, and Fizz is well on top of that, but they just simply don't have enough damage. The tank line right now from KOP with Renekton and also Lee Sin, who's gone for the Sightstone and the Aegis of the Legion, is way too strong, and they don't even have their AD carry because Corki went ahead and picked up that bot lane. They're just falling behind at an alarmingly quick rate. Look at that pulse, 7.7k gold advantage at 16.5 minutes through the game. When was the last time we saw that?
It's been a while, and also with an inhibitor exposed, they can go for a team fight whenever they want it. I wouldn't say Baron's necessarily on the cards, but they could definitely 5-man it if they were in the right position. But looking at the warding coverage right now coming in from Kalu OP in that jungle of Test Your Limits, then they're really gearing up for a fight. They can just go straight up for that inhibitor, and then there's literally nothing that Test Your Limits can do except for conceding the objective, because they just can't fight them. They're too far ahead. Lee Sin's 502. He's opted for the double Doran's Blade into essentially utility tank, which is very common for Lee Sin's.
Yeah, absolutely, and already is proving to be far too tanky, because look at the opposite side right now. The amount of ward coverage is ridiculous from Kalu OP. Just look at that jungle. Everything is warded pretty much. Where's the damage coming from? Fizz, look at those items. Fiendish Codex and an Amplifying Tome. Like, he's basically doing no damage at all. And then you got a Triforce and Corki, which is fair enough. That's a core item. It's going to do quite a bit. But, simply put, the side of KOP right now are far too tanky here, Pulse. And look at Renekton just running in. He does not care, slicing and dicing to his heart's content. I honestly don't feel that they have a chance of killing anybody on the side of Kalu OP. They simply don't have enough damage. There is no damage coming in from their AP carry right now. Maybe they're going to try and steal away this Drake, but it would pretty much be signing their own death warrant. Here comes Zika from the side. Is going to start the engage here on Nasu Maniac, who's trying to run away. Zika's still in hot pursuit right now. Hawkshot comes across. Red buff was picked up in amongst all of that, but already Nasu Maniac has gone down into Cell Division. Beautiful flash and crescendo as well. Here comes the Aqua Prison though, and the Tidal Wave. Can they manage to pick up some kills? The answer looks like a resounding no, as Rio's forced to flash through the wall after using the Playful Trickster. Will be falling as well. That is a 2-for-0 trade with a couple players flashing up red. In fact, that's going to be a 3-for-0 trade, as now Spider Pit's going to go down, and it looks as though this is game, set, and match, Pulse.
Yeah, look at the health lines from all the players on Kalu OP. None of them flashed up red. None of them even went below, well, I wanted to say 50% HP, but Kalu died the turret 1 versus 2, so that would kind of happen regardless. But the rest of the team, Fizz used his essentially full combo on Ashe, and it did maybe 10% of the HP bar. That's not what you're looking for when you want an assassin to be on your team. And this goes back to what we were saying before, Metas. Unless they snowball, unless they get those early game kills, they're just not going to be strong enough when it comes to team fights. They won't have the damage. Yes, they'll be tanky. Yes, they'll have the kind of guardian angel thing going on with Aatrox and Zac. That doesn't matter if you can take them down twice in quick succession, and they don't offer anything to the team fight both times.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we were saying before that fight kicked off, Pulse. I just simply don't think there's enough damage on the table. I can't see where it's coming in. At this point, I would be asking you, okay, can somehow, some way Test Your Limit pull themselves back? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that question, Pulse. No, I'm going to go with.
I'm also going to go with no, but I just heard our producer yawn in the background, and it really put me off.
He made some really dodgy noises as well. I wasn't sure if... yeah, I'm not going to go into detail, but it sounded like they could have been... he could have been having a pretty good time there.
Yeah, well, let's move away from that subject. So, now at the Barry, saying that, find themselves Galatasaray, and in any other situation, in any other game, we'd be like, oh, Aatrox has found himself Ashe, and it's just the AD carry completely mauling the person who you want to be zoning them out in the team fight. So, it's a show of what the game is like at the moment. It's just a true representation of the AD carry can just find them anyone from the enemy team and just be like, well, I can 1v1 you. At 20 minutes is absurdly good.
Oh, it certainly is, and they are going to be picking up this Baron. The only chance I feel that there is for TYL is if they can steal this Baron, but it's already been picked up. Here comes the Tidal Wave and the Elastic Slingshot. If it wasn't bad enough before 5 versus 5, you add a Baron onto that. This is going to be a slaughter. This is a massacre, and not in a good way for Galatasa's Aatrox. They're being chased down right now, 5 versus 3. And the cavalry sound has definitely gone along here. Nasu Maniac trying his best. Let's Bounce has been popped off there. Just pushing everybody back, but getting pulled back in with the shockwave. Cell Division was burnt last time that they went in a 5 versus 5 fight. And this is going to be an ace right now. The Bloodwell's been popped down there, but it's going to be killed as soon as he comes out. And that is going to be the ace and pretty much the GG.
Yeah, this game has honestly been very one-sided. It's also worth mentioning this is a best of one, and we have many best of ones to come today. 7, in fact. This is the first. It'll be myself and Messers taking the first 3 games, then swapping up to Messers Spuddington, and then after that it will be myself and Spuddington. So, until then, that will be more games coming on later. But there's a surrender vote coming in from Test Your Limits, and Kalu OP progresses to the next round.
And that was a very one-sided affair there, Paul. So there isn't too much to say. You know, we were talking about the compositions before, that if they can get rolling, then Test Your Limit have a very good comp. But simply put, they just didn't get the ball rolling in the first place. They lost the first couple kills, and from there on in, it was just a steamroll.
Yeah, honestly, I can't say it was close, Messers, because it really wasn't. And I don't feel they got outpicked in Champion Select. I just felt that they didn't have enough tools early game to get ahead, and especially in the bot lane, it's very dependent on Nami landing the Aqua Prisons, and because I didn't see like any really land, and then Corki didn't really have the opportunity to go anywhere else. So until the next game, guys, we'll jump into a quick commercial break, but when we get back, it will be into the next, the next game of the group stages. This is Group A, I believe, and we'll have another 2 games here before we transition into Group B. Until then, guys, we will see you soon.